Okay, welcome everyone. Sorry I kept you waiting. It's a little tricky. My good friend Dr. Yitzhak Kurtzer lost his father just back from Muncie, where I went to be Menachem Oval, and then there was one of our Balabatim here, the Samet family, is having a Sheva Brachas tonight, so I ran over just to say a few words before. Couldn't do it afterwards because of the Chumash here, the Chumash here and the Mishnayos tonight. We are sponsored by, co-sponsored by Rezepkowitz family and other parents, co-sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Eddie Chazan, L'Refuah Shalema for Shoshana Bas Penina and Simon Bas Rachel, co-sponsored by Binyamin Rivlin, Lili Nishmas Yitzchak Ben Avram Yehuda Levi, co-sponsored by Shelley Zeitlin for his children, Eli, Orit, and Ora, for my Refuah Shalema, Beirich Goldwasser, for my Refuah Shalema, Moshe Meir Ben Esther Fradel, and Akar Satayv to the entire share. We welcome in with us Shimon Klein and Stephen Holtzman, Mel Zachter, Saba, Eddie Chazan, Baruch Ian, Marshall Castle, who's finally got around to come, and Irving Fishbaum, Dov Solkowitz, Mark Frank, Dov, it's good to see you. Dov Selkowitz, Mark Frankel, who is giving us the pleasure of his appearance. Mark has his busy season now, so Mark, it's great to see you, even though I know that you probably would like to collapse in bed. Shalom Fogel, Yisrael Fisher from Brooklyn, Rulei Palakay Barbach, Nachman Chaplin, Moshe Lehman, Richard Rosenzweig, Rabbi Kranz, Yitzi Muller, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Avram Rezepkowitz, Yitzi Fuchs. Here in Shul we have, holding up the fort, even though there's a Shul Simcha, we have, I think Berish Gesseman just tuned in as well. Welcome, Berish. Here we have Michal Avram and Ruvain Shannon, and Shelley Zeitlin has just made an appearance. Okay, we also welcome in David Helfgott. We are holding by Tanya, which is 5 lines from the bottom of Daf Chaf Aleph Amid Beis. Tanya, 5 lines from the bottom of Daf Chaf Aleph Amid Beis. Tanya, Rabbi Yossi Aimer, Roy Hoya Ezra, if you want to think about the greatest personalities of mankind, possibly, although it's hard to say, but possibly in the top 10. I'm not talking about the animal kingdom, Marshall. Possibly of the top 10 would be Ezra. Tani Rabbi Yossi Amaraya Ezra Shetinosen Torah Al Yodoi Yisrael. Ezra was so great that he was worthy that the Torah should have been given through him to Klal Yisrael. That means that he would do the mammoth job of teaching it to Klal Yisrael like Moshe Rabbeinu. Ilmale Kadmai Moshe, if not that Moshe Rabbeinu came before him. But Moshe, because look at the similarities. By Moshe it says, Moshe Allah Elo Elikim, Moshe went up to God. But Ezra, Ezra Allah Mibavel. So Ma Aliyah Ha'amar Kan Torah, just like the Aliyah that says by Moshe Rabbeinu, was an Aliyah, an elevation of Torah. Af Aliyah Ha'amar Lahalan, the Aliyah it says by Ezra was Torah. By Moshe it says, and I was commanded by Hashem at that time to teach you Chukim u'mishpatim, the statutes and the laws. Ezra made ready his heart, Lidraish, to expound as Torah Hashem, and to fulfill it, Ulalame be Yisrael, and to teach Klal Yisrael. Also it says Chayku Mishpat, statutes and laws. And even though the Torah was not given through him, because Moshe Rabbeinu preceded him, Nishtana al yodei aksav. According to this opinion, the writing of the Torah changed through him. Shenemar, for it says, uksav hanishtovon, and the changed writing. Kosev Aramis, it was written in Aramaic, umeturgam Aramis, and it was interpreted in Aramaic. Uksiv, loy kehelen ksava lemikra, loy kohalein ksava lemikra. It says about, this is the famous handwriting of the wall that preceded Belshazzar's downfall by the feast of Belshazzar. Lo kohelin ksava lemikra. They could not, the wise men of Belshazzar could not read the writing. Upishrei lo do malka, and they couldn't give an interpretation of it to the king. Now this is the famous writing on the wall. Now the writing on the wall basically said Minei Minei Tikal Uparsin, that Belshazzar was measured and weighed, and his kingdom would be broken up. But they couldn't read it. Now the Gemara says, Uksiv, and it says, V'kosev es Mishnah Torah Azais. And he will write, now Mishnah Torah generally is translated as the repeat of the Torah. But here the Gemara homiletically explains it, Ksav haro'ui lehishtanos. Mishnah means mishanet, to change. A writing that will be changed. That means that it was changed later from the Ksav Ivri, the Ksav of Mesopotamia, to the Ksav Ashurus. Lama Nikra Ashurus. Why was it called Ashurus? She'ala imay me Ashur, because it came up with Klal Yisrael from Assyria, from Ashur. Tanya. Rabbi Yomer, B'tchila b'ksav zeh nitna Torah Yisrael. Initially, the Torah was given in the Ksav Ashurus. Kevan shechatu. This is a different version of the chronological events of the writing of the Torah. That initially the Torah was written in the Ksav Ashurus. Kevan shechatu, once they sinned at the time of the destruction of the temple, nefach lohem l'roitz, it became like something crushed. They weren't able to read it anymore. Kevan shechazru behem, but once they repented in the days of Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, Hechziru lehem, it was restored to them. Shenemar shuvu levitzaron, return to the place of fortress, to the place of strength, to Yerushalayim, Asirei HaTikva, you who were incarcerated but still had hope. Gam hayoim, even now, Magid Mishneh Oshivloch, that which was said to change, I will return to you. In other words, the Ksav Ashurus, that for a while changed by them and they weren't able to make heads or tails of it, I will restore it to you. And then Lama Nikrishma Ashuris, She'mu'usharas Biksav. It is the richest of all scripts. We welcome in Itchy, who has joined us. You know, it's amazing that we have 30 Zoomers here. 30 Zoomers. You see, when Mark and Marshall come on, the Olam comes running. I'm telling you, it's amazing. Actually, what it is when Mark and Marshall weren't here, we had 28. But I don't want to tell them that. You
hurt my feelings.
It's good that you're feeling.
Marshall told me I could have bourbon.
Well, if Marshall is talking to you, you should have bourbon.
Barry's fault.
Yeah.
If you come to Lakewood, I'll give you my specialty.
Oh, is Barry not here tonight? Barry's not here.
He's here.
Also,
He's here.
Mark knows what special things, right, Mark?
Oh, Barry is here. Hello, Barry. Good to have you. And Barry's streak is still, and I make a joke of it, but at this time in the night, a lot of times Barry is not feeling the greatest, and he still comes on. Barry, I give you bravo to you. You're
streaking? How many times in a row?
You're mechayev, all of us. Okay. What's interesting, we have 30 Zoomers, although we have a shul Sheva Brachas, by the Sheva Brachas, Gdalia is by the Sheva Brachas, Yaakov Warman is by the Sheva Brachas. We're missing some people because of the Sheva Brachas. I was by the Sheva Brachas also, so you're just seeing a mirage. Anyway, Rabbi Shimon Elazar Aimer Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Parta Shaimer Mishum Rabbi Elazar Amudai. Shimon Elazar said in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Parta, says in the name of Rabbi Elazar Amudai, Ksav ze loy nishtam kolika. This writing never changed. It was never forgotten. Shenemar vovei ha'amudim. Now, the vovim of the pillars. Now, vovim are hooks. But here we darshan it, ma'amudim loy nishtana, just as pillars are very, very permanent, avovim loy nishtana. So also the vovim, the letters of the alphabet, never changed. Va'aymer, and it says in the Megillah Esther, Ela Yehudim, and Mordechai said to write to the Yehudim, ki chsavam v'chilushaynam, like their writing and like their language. Malashaynam loy nishtana, just like the holy tongue never changed. Af ksavam loy nishtana, their writing also never changed. Elamani mekayim es Mishnah HaTorah Azos. How do we learn Mishnah HaTorah Azos? Lishtei Soiros. It comes to teach us that the king has to have a Mishnah HaTorah, a double Torah. L'shtei Soiros. Achar sheyotzim v'nichneses imay, one that went out and went in with him. V'achar shemenechas lo bebeis gnazav, and one that he keeps by his treasures. Oisa sheyotzim v'nichneses imay, the one that came out and went in with him. Oisa kamin kameya, was like an amulet. V'toila b'zraya, he had it hanging by his arm. Shenemar shivisi Hashem l'negdi savet, I have Hashem before me at all time. Now,
the Torah he had on his arm, it was such a small. What did he have?
the entire Torah. It was such a small.
It's been a very, very small Torah.
I mean, it was a small Torah. We have small Torahs.
Carry it on your arm all day.
Yes. Now, v'idach hai shivisi my darish pei. The other one that learns Mishnah Torah Zois means the change of the language. What do we learn out from Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Summit? When one davens, he has to imagine, have the imagery, like the Shechina is before him. Shenema Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Summit. I should have Hashem opposite me at all times. Now it's interesting that Rav Chana Bar Business, in the name of Rav Shimon Chasidus, says this particularly specific to davening. The Ramah, as he starts Shulchan Aruch, and as the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch starts the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, applies Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Summit to all times. Like it says in the Pasuk, B'chol drachecha da'eyu. In all your ways you should acknowledge him. Actually, I'll talk a little bit about that in the Chumash here later on tonight. Says the Gemara, Reb Shimon da Amar Ksav Zeh Lo Nishtana, according to Reb Shimon, that the script of the Torah never changed. My Loika Helin Ksava Lemikra. What does it mean that the king's wise men could not read it? They knew the Jewish tongue. Why weren't they able to read it if it never changed? Amarav b'gematria ichtav line. Menei tekel uparsin was encrypted. It was written with gematria, and it was written yatas idach pulkamat. Now, what that employed was actually the gematria of atbash, where aleph is tough and beis is shin. So therefore, yud becomes mem. Tes becomes Nun, and Tuf becomes Aleph. So that's Minei, Chakal, and Tikal, because the Aleph becomes a Tuf. Tikal, a person. My Porish Lahu. How did Doniel interpret it? Minah Tikal Uparsin, which means as follows: Minah Elokah Malchusach. Hashem measured your monarchy, v'hashlama loch, and determined that it's ended, that it's completed, time's up. Tikal, you are weighed. Tikalta b'maznaya, your midos were made in weighed in a scale. V'ishtachacht chasir, and you're found to be lacking. Parsin, broken up. Prisus malchusach balshatzer, tonight your empire is going to be broken up, v'yahevis l'modai ufras, and given to the Medes and the Persians. Ushmuel Aimer, Shmuel says what it had was mimasos ninakfei alran, which just means that it was scrambled. Now, that looks to us like gobbledygook, but if I give you the code, you'll see it right away. We take the first letter of each word, and that becomes Menei. The second letter of each word again becomes Menei. The third letter of each word becomes Tikal, and then after that, we have the remaining letters are scrambled to read Parson. That's the way Shmuel learns it was scrambled. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Anam lekas nisrfu. Now Mark got that right away because he's sharp now. That's just where the words are written backwards. So Anam is Menei, right? You had that right away, Mark, right? It's just backwards. When you're as tired as Mark is, you see things backwards anyway. So Menei, Tikal, Uparsin. Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi just says that the first two letters are scrambled. Nemei, Ketal, person. So that just the first two letters are scrambled. It should say, instead of Nemei, it should say Menei. Instead of Ketal, it should say Tikal. So, and that was the code. The Mishnah continues as we continue in this very, very interesting Gemara. Now, as part of the reverence that we have to show the Melech Yisrael, Ein roich v'n al susay, we cannot ride his horse. Ve'ein yoshin al kisay, nobody could sit on his throne. Ve'ein mishtamshim b'sharvita, one cannot use his scepter. Ve'ein royin oisay kishu mistaper, it's not proper to see him when he's taking a haircut, because a person looks disheveled when he's half cut. V'loy kishu aron, we shouldn't see him naked. V'loy kishu bebeis hamerchatz, and even when he's naked in the bathhouse, when everybody else is naked. Shenemar seim tosim alecha melech, you should place a king upon you. You should always be in a state of awe with the king. Now we know that David HaMelech, when he was old, he had a chill. And Avishag Hashinamis warmed him. Now Avishag, he never had a sexual relationship with her because he already had 18 wives, and he didn't want to divorce any of his wives, so therefore he only used her to warm himself. And when he passed away, she had a din like the scepter of the king, because he used her like a scepter. And Adoniah wanted to marry her. Now, Shlomo, who was also a king, he was able to use the scepter of the king, just like a king could marry the wife of a king. But Adoniah wanted to marry her. Shlomo interpreted that he was claiming he was king, and that he was married b'malchus, and therefore Shlomo had Adoniah killed. And the Gemara talks about this briefly. Amar Reb Yaakov, Amar Reb Yochanan, Avishag buteris l'Shlomo. Avishag was permitted to Shlomo, va'asora la'Adoniah, but she was forbidden to Adoniah. Buteris l'Shlomo, the Melech, because he became king, or Melech mishtamet b'shavita shel Melech, and a king could use the previous king's scepter. Va'asura la'Adoniah, because he wasn't king, the head Yedu, he was just a commoner. Now, what's the story of Avishag? Avishag Mahi. Dichsiv, it says, V'amelech David zokein bo bayamim, he was old, coming on in years, and he was chilled. Vayomer le'avodav, and his servant said, Yevakshu, they should find a maiden who was a virgin, who would give him heat. It seems to be that one that might generate more heat than his regular wives. Uksiv vayivakshu nari yafa, they looked for a beautiful maiden. Uksiv nari yafa ad ma'od, vatila melech seichenes, and she was for the king that which provided warmth, vatishar seyu, and served him. Amra, Avishag said to David, Ninaspan, let us get married. Amalah, so he said, seriously, you're forbidden to me because I already have 18 wives. Amalei, chasre leganva nafshe, lishlama nokit. When a thief doesn't have anybody to steal from, he acts like he's a man of peace. So what she was saying is, you just don't want to marry me because you're too old to have marital relations. Amalahu, so he said to them, Koruli l'Basheva, please call me my wife Basheva. Uksiva tavo Basheva lamelech hachadra, and Basheva went into the king in the inner chamber, and they had relations. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rabbi, Sisha kincha Basheva b'shloish esrei mapas. She had to clean herself 13 times. He had 13 beers with her. So it wasn't because he wasn't strong. Amar Rav Shman bar Abba, or Rav Shaman bar Abba, Bo Rei Kama Koshin Gerushin. David HaMelech had to waive the Isser Yichud, the Isser of being alone with a Pnuya, which they answered because of the mice of Amnon and Tamar, rather than divorcing one of his 18 wives, because divorce is not good. And it would be a very bad example for the king to set such an example. And it's a lack of loyalty to one of his 18 wives. Amrav Shmein ba'aba bo re'ei kama koshin gerishin, shari David HaMelech hitiru lo liyached, he permitted to be alone with Avishag, v'lo yitiru lo ligarish, but the Chachamim did not allow him to divorce a wife. Terrible thing to divorce a wife if not necessary. Of course, sometimes it's necessary. There are some individuals that are so dysfunctional that sometimes it's necessary, but it's a tragedy. Amar Rabbi Lazar, whoever divorces his wife of his youth, even the altar cries. Now, Rapam used to say that even the altar that's hardened to slaughter, hundreds, thousands of animals are slaughtered by it, cannot take the slaughter of a divorce and what it does to the children. Even the altar sheds tears. And this you also do. Kasois dima, you cover with tears as Mizbech Hashem, the altar of Hashem, Bechi ve'anaka, with crying and groaning. Me'ein oid preis el mincha, Hashem will not turn to your meal offerings, v'lokachas ritzoin miyedchem, and take favor from your hand. Uksiv amartem almo, why is Hashem rejecting? Why is the altar crying? Al ki Hashem heyed beincha ubein eishes nurecha. For Hashem testifies what happened between you and the wife of your youth. Asher ato bagadita ba, you acted treacherously, disloyally. V'hi chavertecha, she's your friend. Ve'eshes brisecha, and the wife of your covenant. The Torah says between husband and wife, v'davak be'ishtay, there should be loyalty. Of course, we're not talking about a case, sometimes it's a case of dysfunction. The husband is abusing his wife. He's an incurable alcoholic, sick gambler who is a repeat offender. But otherwise, it's a great treachery. A woman doesn't die unless they ask from the husband money that he stole, and he doesn't make restitution. If you don't have what to pay, why should your bed be taken from beneath you? Now, we have to understand that Hashem will not punish a wife because her husband's a deadbeat. So what does this Gemara mean? It means that a lot of times a woman doesn't deserve to live. But she lives because her husband needs her. So she could live further because of the schus of her husband. He needs her. But if the husband himself steals and doesn't return, he loses the right to protect his wife. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. We lost one person. I wonder what happened. Is Barry here? He is here. Okay.
What am I, chopped liver?
Don't insult chopped liver, please. Would you say it's been longer than 2 weeks that Aaron Swade is not here? It's a lot longer than 2 weeks. We have to check after him.
I'm guessing he didn't come back yet.
A long time. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Adam shemeisoi ishtoi rishayna, whoever loses his first wife, Ki'ilu charav beis hamikdash b'yamav. It's like the temple was destroyed in his days. Now, this is not just a simple comparison. When a husband and wife get married, I said this just now by the Sheva Brachas, and I said it under the chuppah this week. Ramila used to say to a chassan and kala, right now when you're under the chuppah, this is when the shchina comes down on you. Ish v'isha shalom beinehem, shchina shruya beinehem. When the wife dies, that shchina dissipates. It's like a destruction of a temple. So Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Adam shemeisa ishtu yishayna ki'ilu charav beis hamikdash b'yamav. It's like the temple was destroyed in his day. Shenema ben Adam, son of man. This Hashem told Yecheskel, whose wife would die, Hineni lokach mimcha es machmad einecha. I'm going to take that which is precious in your eyes by my gefa, in a plague. And this is part of a exhibition that you're going to give as a mashal to Klal Yisrael. You will not eulogize. You won't cry. And you won't tear. Uksiv v'adaber ela ba'boker. He spoke to the people in the morning. V'atomas ishti ba'erev. And Yecheskel said that his wife died in the evening. Uksiv, and Yecheskel prophesied the same way. Hineni mechalel es mikdashi. I am going to desecrate the temple. Ge'oin uschem, the glory of your might. Machmad einechem, the preciousness of your eyes. So in the Navi compares the loss of a wife to the destruction of a temple. Amar of Alexandria, kol adam shemeisa ishtay biyamav, a person whose wife dies during his lifetime, oilam choshech ba'adai. His whole world is dark. I can tell you this from personal experience. It's 7 years ago. 7 years ago, this past Monday, when my first Rebbetzin, Miriam Libby, passed away, the whole world seemed dark. Whole world seemed dark. Shenamar or choshach ba'ohalai, light became dark in his tent. V'neira olav yidach, and the candle that was over him will be put out. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina amar psiyosav miskatzreis. His footsteps get shortened. In other words, he is weakened. Shenemar yetzru tzadei ono. It becomes more narrow, the paces of his strength. Rabbi Yavo amar atzasei noifeles. He loses his counsel. The Gemara says that you should take counsel from a wife. Atzasei noifeles. Shenemar vasashlicheyu atzasei. And his advice will shoot him down. In other words, he loses that extra advice. Amar Rabba Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kosher lezavgam kekriyas yamsa. It's difficult to make matches like the splitting of the Red Sea. Shenamar alikim moshivim yechidim beisa. Hashem takes individuals into a home, and it's like motzi asirim bakosharis. He takes out prisoners in the proper time, like he did when we crossed the sea. And it says, al tikre motzi asirim. It doesn't say he takes out prisoners, elikim motzi asirim, like taking out prisoners. In other words, the putting individuals into a marriage is like the miracle of the Yamsuf. Now, al tikri bakosharis, don't read the word bakosharis in the proper time. Ela bechi v'shirais. It's crying and singing, because the Yamsuf was crying for the Mitzrim and singing for Klal Yisrael. Now there are other Amaletic drushes in this pasuk, and that is that Hashem is Moishiv Yechidim Beisa. He puts together his individuals. Moitzi Asirim, he takes out those that are tied bakosharis, in chains, because marriage, the husband and wife are chained together. Marriage holds them together. And Ramila would say a person has to know that the nature of marriage is bechi v'shirais. There are times of crying and there are times of singing. It says marriage is not always good. It's not realistic to think that it's always going to be smooth sailing. There's going to be bumps. And that's why it's bechi v'shiras, this time of crying and this time of singing. Says the Gemara, what do you mean marriage is so hard? It's preordained 40 years before the creation of the embryo. 40 days before the creation of the embryo, Brasko Yitzis Vaymeres, a Basko comes out and says, Bas Ploni LePloni, the daughter of so-and-so to so-and-so. I always learned that why does it have to be before the creation of the embryo? Because Hashem creates us for our spouse. It's like you buy a computer and it says Intel inside. We're created for one another. And that means that if we play our cards right, it's going to be very good. Because we are created to complement each other. And by the way, why does it say bas ploni leploni? Why doesn't it say plonis leploni? This girl to this boy. The answer is when the boy, usually, the boy is older than the girl. So when the boy is born, the girl wasn't born yet. So you can't say plonis, she wasn't born yet. So you say bas ploni, you say our father. So the Gemara says, so it's not hard, it's preordained. Says the Gemara, like kasha bezivik rishon bezivik sheni. The first match is preordained. The second match, that's as hard like the splitting of the Red Sea. Now the second match, elsewhere the Gemara says, zivik sheni lefi masim. The second match is according to a person's behavior. So somebody once came to the rabbi and said, Rabbi, I'm never going to get married. He said, why not? It says, like, Toive Yaisa Adam Levada. He says, well, it says Zivik Sheni is according to one's deeds. If I remarry, it's going to be a real problem. I don't have such good deeds. I don't think it's safe for me to marry. So the rabbi told him, it means your deeds from right now. Start fixing your deeds, and then you'll be ready to get married. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Nachman, lakol yesh tmura chutz me'eshes neurim. There's an exchange for everything except for the wife of one's youth. Shenema ve'eshes neurim, the wife of one's youth, ki simois. Can that ever be something that is polluted? There's nothing that can compare to it. Masnei Rav Yehuda Rav Yitzchak Brei, ein adam motzei kairos ruach. A person doesn't have that sense of satisfaction. Elamei ishtay rishayna, from his first wife. Shenema yehi mekairach baruch. May your source be blessed. Usmach, and find happiness. Me'eshes nu'ureich, from the wife of your youth. Me'eshes nu'ureich. Amalai kigain man, like who? Amalai, so Rabbi Yehuda says, kigain imach, like you, like your mother. He told his son, Rabbi Yitzchak, like your mother. Says Gemara, in Iva, Mikre le Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yitzchak Brei, Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Yitzchak, his son, I found more bitter than death a woman, asher he mitzudim v'charamim, she's full of traps and nets. Amalek kigain man, like who? V'amalek kigain imach, like your mother. So which one is it? Is it satisfaction, or is it worse than death? Amar Rav Shmuel bar Unya mishmei de Rav. Excuse me. So the Gemara says, he explained, mitkiv tkifa. She had a very strong personality, but iburei ma'abra b'mila. But she was also looked away a lot. Now, the Mashal learns, because we have to know, what was he telling his son, that his wife is Mama Mavis, and that Lashon Hara? So the Mashal learns that what he was telling him is you should know that your mother, by nature, is a very strong person. But she worked on herself, and she became very forgiving. And that's what he was telling him about the greatness of his mother. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Unya mishmei de Rav, isha goylam hi. A woman is an unfinished product. Ve'ena kareses bris, and she doesn't make a pact. Ela lemisha asa keli, except with the person that finished her. In other words, the man who finished her by sleeping with her and removing her virginity. Shenemar ki ba'olayich oisayich, the one that made you, Hashem tzvaka shmai. But we learn out ba'olayich oisayich, the one who had the first beer with you and made you a keli, made you. And there's a special relationship between the one who made her into a finished vessel. Tana, ein ish meis ela le'ishtay. A man only dies to his wife. Go to a house in the morning. There's a lot of children. They're grieving. Or they lost their father, lo yaleinu. But the one that really suffers the loss is the wife. She's in the bedroom alone. Ein ish meis ela le'ishtay, ve'ein isha meisa ela lebala. And when a woman dies, the greatest loss is to her husband. Ein ish meis ela le'ishtay, shenemar vayomas Elimelech ish Nami. And the Melech died, the husband of Nami, so she died exclusively to Nami. Ve'ein isha meisa ela lebayla, shenemar v'ani b'vayim mipadan. When Yaakov said, when I came from Padan, meisa alai Rachel. Now, of course, Rachel died to Yosef and Binyamin as well. But ein isha meis ela lebala. The real loss, so we have to always remember this. We have to always remember the one that need the greatest support and comfort is the spouse. Now, it's amazing, these Gemaras that we're learning night after night, so much information, so much, I'm telling you, it's really, what a zechiyah we have. Now we're back to 31 here, wow. As we have Naftali Jablin with us. Shelley, you're going to get on that again with Aaron Swade. I'm a little bit nervous about Aaron.
I already wrote to him. I just now a minute ago did. So.
I also wrote to him, and I'm not hearing anything back. I mean, it is possible that he's in a place where he just doesn't have communication.
Was he on a long cruise? Something like that?
I don't.
When he was in Panama, he said he was on a cruise.
I know he went away for 2 weeks, but it's longer than 2 weeks.
Yeah, way more. I'll dial the number.
Maybe the sailor got lost.
Yeah.
Gilligan's Island, right?
I mean, Eddie comes even if he's lost.
Rabbi, does he have family here that you can reach out to, or?
I mean, he has a wife. He's with his wife.
Oh, okay.
He's on the 5 towns, so.
And Marshall and Barry are not saying anything, so I don't know.
Quite unusual.
Yeah. See, even though Barry's on mute, I know what he's saying. I know he's saying, I know nothing.
He wouldn't say that about you.
Now.
Rabbi, I spoke to him. He definitely is away.
He definitely what?
He was definitely away.
I know he was away. He went to Panama.
I just don't think he's back yet.
All right. It's like strange because usually when he's away, he tunes in.
Maybe he got stuck in the South Canal.
Yeah.
Mark. What's our RMP, Mark?
Okay, now, Ein Royan Oisai, we cannot see him when he's taking a haircut. Now, talk about taking a haircut. Ton Rabban Melech Mistaper B'Kol Yom. A king takes a haircut every day. Kohen Gadol Me'erev Shabbos Le'erev Shabbos. A Kohen Gadol takes a haircut every Friday. Kohen Hedyot Echad L'Shloshim Yom. A regular Kohen once a month. Melech Mistaper B'Chol Yom. The king takes a haircut every day. Shenema Melech B'Yofyo Yisechazena Einecha. The king in his beauty, your eyes should always behold. Kohen Gadol me'erev Shabbos, Amar Rav Shmuel ben Nachman, Amar Rav Yochanan, Hayol mishmoros mischatshei. Since there's a change of guard on Shabbos, where the mishmar hanichnosais, there are 24 mishmars, the new mishmar comes in, the king should be seen in his best way by the new mishmar. Kohen Hedyot echad l'shloshim yom, dichsiv, because it says in Yecheskel, V'roisham lo yigalechu, their head should not be shaved, upera lo yishalichu, and their locks shall not be let grow long. Ksoim yichsamu es roshem, they should trim their heads. Now v'yolef pera min nazir, and we learn out pera from nazir. A nazir stam naziris is for 30 days. Ksiv acha pera lo yishalechu. They shouldn't grow for 30 days. V'ksiv asam gadel perasar roishay, that the nazir has to have the growth of the hair of his head. Malahalan, a stam nazir is a growth of shloshim, of 30 days. Afkan shloshim, tanan nami, as we learned, stam naziris is shloshim yom. A regular naziris is 30 days. Says Gemara Takav Hasami Nolan. How do we know when Michal Avram says Hareini Nazir? He has to let his hair grow 30 days. Amrav Masnad Amakra Kadosh Yiyah, and Yiyah is Bigamatria Tlosanava, is 30. It's one of the major laws of the Torah that we learn out from a Gematria, because it says that the hair should be holy, and it says Yiyah, Yud is 10, Hey is 5, that's 15, Yud is 10 is 25, Hey is 5 is 30, so Stam Naziris is 30 days. Amalei Rapapal Abaya, Emaloi Lirbu Klal, maybe we should read it, Pera lo Yishalechu, that he shouldn't grow his hair at all. Amalei Iksiv lo Yishalchu Pera, if it says you shouldn't grow the locks, Kidika Amrit. Hashted Iksibu Pera lahave, it could be 30 days, but shluchei lo lishluchu, it shouldn't be more than that. So the Gemara says, so why isn't there a din today also that a kohen should cut his hairs every 30 days? There is no such a din. Well, why not?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Says the Gemara, if so, idna nami, today also, says the Gemara, dumya diyayin. It's similar to wine. Ma yayin bizman biyahu da'asr. Just like wine. Only when they enter into the mikdash is it asr for the kohen to drink wine. Shaloi bizman biyashari, but when they're not entering in the mikdash, it's permitted. Apru a reish, also letting the hair grow, bizman biyasr, only when they enter into the mikdash is it asr. Shaloi bizman biyashari. Says the Gemara of Yayin Shaloi bizman biyashari, is drinking wine when they're not entering the mikdash permitted? Vatani Rebbe Omer Ani Kohanim Asurin Lishtois Yayin La'olam. I would say that Kohanim should be forbidden to drink wine forever. Why? Because maybe Mashiach will come, and it's time to. We need a kohen that's ready, and he doesn't know. Maybe it's his mishmar, and the Gemara says elsewhere. And even if it's not his mishmar, maybe he'll be the one that's ready, or maybe they'll need in the beginning everybody to serve. His saving grace is the fact that it's been such a long time from the Churban, and the Mishmaras got mixed up, so we don't know if it's his specific Mishmar, and that's why he could drink wine. And although Rebbe says this, but the Chachamim disagree. And the Chachamim hold that he can't drink wine because maybe they'll build the base of Mikdash. The Kohanim drink wine only like Rebbe, Mechlal the Rabbanon Osrei. So the Gemara says, you're right. But Hasam Hainu Taima Meheri Yibana Beis HaMikdash, that the Beis HaMikdash might be rebuilt suddenly, or Ba'inan Kayin Aray Lavaida, and will need a Kayin. So therefore they can't drink wine. But they don't have to cut their hair. If the Beis HaMikdash gets built, they could cut their hair then. Says Gemara, Hachanami Ba'inan Kayin Aray Lavaida Veleka. So also he should have his hair cut. Says Gemara, he could cut it right away and do the avodah. So Hasam Nami Efshid Nayim Pursa, even if he drank wine, he could take a nap, the ayil. Dama Ravacha Derech Mill, a walk of a mill, Vishina Kolshu, and a little sleep, Mafigan Esayayin, takes away the effect of the wine. But the Gemara says no. That's only very little wine. That's only a little bit, 2.9 fluid ounces. It doesn't help to sleep. That'll just make him more famished. Walking wears him down. And the wine and the sleep will make him more famished. So the Gemara says, yeah, but even so, where did they say that you cannot do it now? Rav Ashi Amar Shtuya Yayin, drinking wine, that if you do the avodah when you drank wine, it would profane the service. Shtuya Yayin the Machle Avodah Gaz Rabbanan, that you can't even do it now. Pruei Rosh, but if you did the avodah without the proper haircut, the loy machle avodah, that doesn't profane the service. Loy gazu b'rabbanan. Meisvei ve'elu shebemisa. The following, if the kohen does the avodah improperly, there's mis b'dei shemayim, there's death at the hands of heaven. That's why Esav didn't want the firstborn rights. He said, I'm going to serve Hashem, I'm going to my death. Why do I need to mess around with such stuff? It's 20,000 volts. The following, get me to be Reishmaim, Pruei Rosh, Vishsuya Yain. If he's doesn't have the proper haircut, and he drinks wine, Bishlai Vishsuya Yain, Dichsiv Yain V'Shecher Al Teisht, wine and strong beverage you shouldn't drink, Ato V'Necha, V'Lo Yisamusu, and then you won't die. Ela Pruei Rosh Minalan, the Iskish Shtuya Yain L'Pruei Rosh, there's a juxtaposition, Ksiv Roshim Lo Yigalechu, the head shouldn't be shaved, the Pruei Perali Yishalechu, you shouldn't let your locks grow long, V'Yayin Lo Yishtu, and you shouldn't drink wine. Mashisuya yayin b'misa, just like if you do the avodah inebriated, you would die. Aprei rosh b'misa. So why don't we say that from that juxtaposition we should learn also omina mashisuya yayin demachle avodah. Just like if you do the avodah having drank wine, you desecrate the avodah. Aprei rosh demachle avodah. We should say that if you let your hair grow, it should also desecrate the service. Says the Gemara Kasha. That's a good question. So now the Gemara says, we always wonder that when we learn something out from a pasuk midivrei Kabbalah, from Nevi'im, like from Yecheskel, how did they know the halacha before that? We're learning over here that a kohen, if he does the avodah with his hair not properly cut, he gets misa because of the juxtaposition in the pasuk of Yecheskel. Amalei Ravina Rav Ashi Hai Ad Deloy Asi Yecheskel Man Amra. This before Yecheskel came, who said it? And before Yecheskel said, how do we know it? Says the Gemara, that's not a kasha, because of the Tamei Chadam Rav Chisda Davar Zeh Mitaris Moshe Rabbeinu Lo Lamadnu. this matter that a kohen who's uncircumcised, even for a good reason, because his brother died, because he was a hemophiliac, they didn't have good clotting, so he's not allowed to circumcise himself. How do we know he's not allowed to do the avodah? So Davazem Moshe Rabbeinu lo lamadnu, ad sheba Yecheskel v'lamadnu. Yecheskel taught it, Kol ben Necher, any stranger, Orel Leiv, if he has an uncircumcised heart, or Orel Basar, or uncircumcised of flesh, even if he doesn't have an uncircumcised heart, even if it's just because Mesa Achav Machmas Mila, Lo Yavo El Mikdash, he can't do service in my temple. Now this is a pasuk in Yecheskel. How do we know it before Yecheskel? Adaloi by Yecheskel, Man Amra, who said it? Ella, it must be it was Halach L'Moshe Misinai. Ella Gemara Gemirula, it was Halach L'Moshe Misinai, handed down from tradition from Moshe Rabbeinu. V'asi Yecheskel v'asmechei akra, and Yecheskel propped it up with a pasuk. Hachanami Gemara Gemirula, that cutting that a kohen does the hair without the proper haircut is a tradition from Moshe. V'asi Yecheskel v'asmecha v'kra. V'chi gemirei halacha l'misa. We have halacha that he would have misa b'nei shemayim lachule avodah lo gemir, but there's no kabbalah that it would profane the service. My kosom yichsemu es rosheim. What does it mean that the kohen should trim his hair? So the Gemara is going to say that there was a very specific hairstyle. They want to dash in kosom like a kusemes, like a spelt. Tana kamin tispiris lulyonis, like the Lullian haircut, where one hair extended to the root of the next hair and stopped, and then the next hair started. They didn't overlap. One hair went to the root of the next hair, and then the next hair came out. As the Gemara explains, my tispiris lulyonis, Rav Yehuda Mishmul Tirsporta Yechida was a unique haircut. Rav Ashi Roishe Shel Zeh B'tzad Ikroi Shel Zeh. The head of one goes to the root of the next one. Shalu Es Rebbe Ezo Tirsporta Shel Kohen Gadol. What's the haircut of the Kohen Gadol? Amalahem, he said to them, Tz'u u'ru'u mitirsporta Shel Ben Elisha. Go and see the haircut of my son-in-law Ben Elisha. Tanya, Rebbe Aimer, Lo yalchinam pizer Ben Elisha es ma'osav. My son-in-law did not scatter his money for waste. Ela kedei laharis by tisparish shel Kohen Gadol. He wanted to show the unique haircut of the Kohen Gadol. Hadr lach Kohen Gadol, Hadr lach Kohen Gadol, Hadr nalach Kohen Gadol.